Joined in studio now by Dr. Sheila Foreman. She is one of the busiest people I've mentioned on this program before. She's not only an attorney, she's also a clinical psychologist, a published author, radio and television personality. Dr. Sheila, good to see you again.
Thanks very much.
Now, Sheila, on last week's program, we were talking about the many emotional dangers that can be faced by people when we're going through the kind of turbulent economic times that we find ourselves in. I wanted to explore on this week's program the next step that people might have fallen into as a result of everything that's going on. And whether it's the economic times or even your own personal hardships, people fall into depression.
That's right.
And sometimes depression can be hard to diagnose in yourself as it is to diagnose in a loved one. What are some of the warning signs that someone may actually be suffering from depression? Let's talk about ourselves first.
Absolutely. You know, we all experience the blues. We wake up, we're having a bad day, but when those blues last for about 2 weeks, that's the first signal.
Okay.
If your blue mood lasts for 2 weeks or longer, you may be heading into a clinical depression.
Okay.
That's the first thing. The second thing you want to look at is, has your appetite changed? Do you find yourself either over-consuming or under-consuming food? What about your sleeping habits? Are you sleeping too much or not sleeping at all? These are all signs of clinical depression.
Interesting. So what a person should do first when examining themselves in the mirror, so to speak, and wondering why I'm not particularly happy right now, is those 4 warning signs: change in appetite, change in lifestyle, change in sleeping habits.
Absolutely.
And just, 2 weeks of being moody?
Well, 2 weeks is the minimum. Once we cross that 2-week mark, that's when we start looking for depression.
Okay.
We also want to look at, has the person lost interest in their activities? Has their life sort of become stale and empty? Are they starting to isolate? These are all signs indicating that this person isn't just blue, but they're actually depressed.
Now, for someone who may have seen these signs in themselves, it's got to be very difficult to admit to oneself that I may be suffering from depression.
Most people don't want to because they think depression is this horrible, terrible psychiatric condition. It isn't. It's actually part of the human condition, and it's absolutely treatable. And the sooner you recognize it and the sooner you go in for treatment, the sooner it will go away. Okay,
so it's basically a take the bull by the horn situation and try to get something done. What about when we're noticing these changes and these traits in someone we care very deeply about, a loved one, a spouse, a child even?
Absolutely. Children suffer from depression too. People don't realize that. If you see those signs in someone that you care about, say something. Ask them how they're feeling. And do a little inventory. Keep these symptoms in mind and say, how have you been sleeping? How have you been eating? You know, do you still enjoy your baseball game? Do you still like playing poker? Do you still like doing your needlework? And really do an assessment. And if you feel like they're answering these questions in a way that suggests they're in depression, suggest to them that they contact their physician, or if they have a therapist, to bring it up in their therapy session.
But how do you bring up to someone who may be suffering from depression that you are suspicious of that without perhaps running the risk of driving them further away from you? Because you can't help them if they drive themselves away from you.
Most people are receptive. When they feel that somebody really gets them, when they feel heard or validated, they're not going to run away from you.
Okay.
There's even a fallacy. A lot of people are afraid to ask somebody who's severely depressed if they're suicidal. They think, oh, if I say, are you suicidal, I'm going to give them the idea.
Okay.
No, what you're really doing is you're putting some light on it and making it okay to talk about it. So if you go to someone and say, you know, I'm very concerned about you, you haven't been yourself, you seem depressed to me, are you okay? Usually that's an opening that they need to be able to say, you know what, I'm not doing so well. I need a little help.
So, I mean, you could almost say that someone approaching or in a state of clinical depression probably feels pretty alone in the world.
Absolutely.
And
that's
so
one of the signs.
It's very helpful for a loved one to, you're not alone, I'm here, and I'm here to help you with whatever it is we can do.
That's right. Absolutely.
What's the first step then? We're almost out of time, but is it you pick up the phone and call somebody? I mean, what's the very first step someone should do once there's been a, say, self-diagnosis?
Absolutely. If you think that you or someone that you love has depression, call a psychologist and get in for an evaluation. And then if the psychologist determines that you do have clinical depression, then he or she can either recommend psychotherapy or refer you to a psychiatrist for medication or some combination of both. So get in for treatment. See a professional.
Very sound advice, Sheila. Thank you very much. Dr. Sheila Foreman, and she has to leave us now. As I said, she's very busy. She has a radio interview in 5 minutes. Doctor, thanks so much.
Thanks very much, Don.
Take care.